I'm Timofte, VP of Global Engineering at SaaS. And today I'm going to talk about engineering for impact, shifting from maintenance to value creation. In my experience, I've seen how with a bit of focus and a clear plan, you can truly transform teams, departments, and even entire organizations. And today, I want to share with you the framework that I use that helped me to do just that. But before we start, I want to ask you a few questions. And you look like a cool crowd, so let me see. How many of you are struggling or have been struggling with tech debt? Maybe raise your hand. Yeah, nice. All right, next question. How many of you are struggling to prioritize innovation? All right. Quite a few as well. And now the last question. How many of you have heard that you need to deliver faster? Yes. All right, so I'm not alone, that's good. I didn't expect that. Well, today I want to share with you my experience when I moved into a new department. And this was a few years ago, and I was asked to move and lead this department, which was struggling with the speed of delivery. There was minimal to no customer value being created. Tech debt was mentioned a lot, but no one knew exactly what it was. And the morale of the team was as low as possible. Now, when I joined the team, I went and asked, what's your biggest challenge? And I got two very different answers. From leadership and other stakeholders in the organization, I was hearing that the engineering team is slow and no value was being created to customers. Now, when I went and asked the engineering team, I heard a different story. They were saying that plans were changing constantly and they were barely getting any time to even address critical maintenance work. Now, you can imagine everyone was frustrated, no one was getting what they wanted, and in situations like this, obviously, fingers were pointed everywhere. What was clear to me was that I was dealing with emotions, and what we needed was data. And as the saying goes, what gets measured gets managed. So I started work here. I went and looked, where was our time going? What were we spending time on? And I looked at the number of bugs, I looked at the deployment frequency, the infrastructure setup, the outages, the incidents, everything that I could track, and also everything that was not tracked yet. And the result was eye-opening. I discovered that the teams were spending over 70% of their time just to keep the lights on and to navigate through the noise. And at best, they were having 30% of time to create new value to customers. And this is when I went and set a goal for us. And I set a very ambitious goal, which I tried to make it as simple, measurable, and also memorable for people. And this is when I said the 70-30 flip, which was saying that we want to flip from spending 70% of our time on maintenance to spending that time on creating value to customers. But let's talk about some practical things that I've done for achieving that goal. What did I achieve? We'll find out. I want to share with you the steps that I've taken and steps that you can take. And actually, when I was invited to speak to you today, and since we were the first presentation, I wanted to give you some ideas of how maybe the things you'll hear today will inspire you. You'll get some ideas from the next speakers. I'm sure you'll hear about amazing ideas from the next speakers because I know most of them. And you want to bring those in your company. And I should say, no matter your role or how big your team is, how small your organization might be, at the end of the day, if you want to change something, you'll have to convince a group of people to change what they're doing, and you need to be convincing enough to get their buy-in, and also for them to stick with you through this journey, especially when things are getting hard. So, what's the first step? First, you need to identify the problem. And I mean, truly identify the problem. Don't just scratch the surface. In our case, I didn't just go and say, hey, we have too much maintenance and leave it to that. In reality, it was a combination of factors that got us to this situation. And I discovered that we had many decisions made that were reactive. We had almost no visibility over the system health. There was a lot of invisible work going that was not measured or mentioned anywhere. We had high attrition as well. The morale of the team was quite low. And also I discovered that communication between departments was not ideal, which led to constant firefighting instead of us having a proactive plan. And in this situation, I went and asked why. And I didn't start with the first why. I actually applied for each case. I applied the 5 whys technique, which it's basically you don't just ask why once, you try to ask 5 times until you get to the core problem. And to give you a concrete example, I discovered that one of the teams spent an entire quarter updating the .NET version of an application. I'll repeat, an entire quarter. So I went and asked, hey, why did it take this long? Well, we're multiple versions behind and there were many breaking changes. Okay. Why did we have to do all that work in 1 quarter and stop everything else from happening? Well, the version that we're using was reaching end of life, so we were forced to make the update. Okay, but why did we wait until the last moment to do this? Well, because we're taken by surprise. And so on, and so on. Now, with this case, what helped me was that I discovered not just one, but multiple reasons why we're in this situation. It wasn't the maintenance alone, were actually multiple factors. And then it got me thinking, okay, so do we have a way to know the state of our system? Are we using the right technology? Why did it take us this long? Maybe it's a problem with the technology that we're using. Do we need to make an update? How do we ensure that this is not happening again? And then I went and looked into those areas. But now with this specific problem, I went beyond the engineering. So, as I mentioned, I discovered, okay, the team was spending around 70% of their time on maintenance. But there was still 30% of time, supposedly, for creating value. I couldn't find any evidence of the output. No one was talking about it, so that's where I went and looked in that side. And I started to check what are our product plans, what are our communication plans, what about marketing materials? Again, everything to see where the problem was. And in this situation, I discovered that our departments were not communicating clearly, so plans were changing frequently. And plans were changing frequently for a team that was already spread thin. And it was hard for them to keep up with all these changes. And frankly, they were at the point that they didn't even try. So identify the problem, go deep, and ask why repeatedly to get to the core. Now, second step. You need data. I mean, assumptions and gut feeling is good, gives you a direction, but data is what is convincing people. In my case, everyone knew we had a problem, and since they were in this state for quite a bit of time, they thought they knew exactly what we should be doing. So I had to bring a lot of data to demonstrate that the root causes that I found and the areas that I wanted us to focus on were the right ones. So I had to bring data to have the entire group see the problem through the same lenses I was seeing the problem. Now, to make your case even stronger, the next step that I would recommend for you to take is to find internal and external benchmarks. In my case, I looked for internal data. I tried to analyze how was this team doing a year ago, 2 years ago. Do we have other teams that I could see data that could help us to set a goal? I also went externally, and I tried to look in the industry if others were measuring this type of data and what would it look like. Now, unfortunately, at the time when I was searching this goal, I couldn't find much, or at least the information that I found wasn't as strong. And I also tried to ask some of our partners and people in the industry that I knew to see if there's data that they knew and something that they were measuring. But at best, I just got like some assumptions, and majority were saying like, oh, probably it's a balance between maintenance and value creation. So in my case, I only use our internal data, and I put a plan for what good should look like for our company, for the size of the company we are. So with all the data, now you need to set a goal. And it needs to be an ambitious goal, that it's as simple as possible, it's measurable, and you need to make it memorable as well. And this is where the 70-30 flip came for us. It was very easy to say to people. One tip that I would say when looking at setting goals, try to use, for example, round numbers if you can. Like if I was to say like, hey, we're doing the 68.23% flip, probably not that great, right? Also use simple words. Don't go and get the dictionary to find the most fancy word that you could find to explain what you're trying to do. No, this is not a use simple words. And then, of course, it has to be measurable, because you want to see progress. You want to see from where you started to where you want to be, and have constant check-ins. And then you want it to be memorable, because you want everyone to talk about. You want your team to always know what's that North Star for them. So, next step. You have your goal, you have all your data. Now you need to put this thinking on paper. And this is where you go and create a document, a PowerPoint, whatever you want. And this document The same as with the goal, it needs to be simple, easy to digest. I've seen people coming with like a 70-page document or 70 slides. You're not going to have that many people read that. And even if some will read it, I can bet you they are not going to remember everything that you put in there. So keep it small. You can always add appendix and put everything that you have in this document for those that really want to go in details. But as a starting point, keep it simple. Now, a key part of this document is to define the current state. You need to say how the situation is looking today before you make any changes. So, in our case, I went and not just say, hey, this is the state of the technology, I also put what's the state of the team. I put in our case, one of the reasons and one of the causes for the situation was that we had very small teams, which made them very fragile. With any change in the plan was having a massive impact on them. Even a few days from sick leave was derailing the plan for the team. So that's where I wanted to make sure everyone knew what was the current state, what was the attrition rate for us, and so on. And you might think that everyone knows what's the current state. Like maybe today you'll hear that one of the ideas you might have is, hey, I want to bring event-driven architecture in the company, and if I say I want to do that, well, obviously, everyone knows how many engineers are in my team. Oh, you're wrong. It's better to write it down because people don't know what you know. So it's better to have it in this. Next is to propose areas for improvement and their impact. This is what's going to get buy-in because so far you just talked about problems and things you want to achieve, but you need to put some areas, some specific areas that you want to improve and their impact. This is what is going to show leadership and others externally that you are thinking strategically. And for the situation that I was sharing earlier around the size of the team, this is where if we want to improve things, we need to have healthy teams that are resilient. And I propose what a healthy team should look like, what was the right mixture of skills, their roles, their responsibilities, and also because it was clear from the data I was having in the analysis, was clear that with high attrition was taking us then time to focus on recruitment, and then it was taking us time to onboard that person. So in reality, this team was having 1-2 engineers all the time that were doing the work. But the company was saying like, oh, this is a team of 5. Or like this was a department of like 20 people. But in reality, there were very few that were there at all times. And you finish with an action plan. In my case, I only put a 90 days plan. This was a long transformation, but I wanted to only have the starting point with clear roles, deadlines, who was responsible for what, and at the same time I wanted to keep it flexible because I didn't know everything from the start. So instead of trying to put together a plan for an entire year with all the details that will definitely change, only focus for 90 days. But this will depend on the size of the change that you're trying to make. And last thing you need to do is to communicate, because communication is key. And I know as engineers, we might not like this part, but if you want to make a change, you need to communicate what you're trying to do. And this is exactly what I've done. I shared my document widely with the entire organization. I answered questions. I got feedback. Many were skeptical. Some thought I was crazy. Others didn't understand what I was talking about, but I kept on communicating until everyone understood what the 70-30 flip meant and how they could get behind it. So these are the steps that you can follow, and I might a little bit so you can see it. And if you follow these steps, in the end, you'll have a document, you'll have a clear goal, you'll have a set of actions that you can take, and it will make it much easier to achieve it and will give you a chance to actually be successful. Now, the result for us, well, yes, we were successful. Otherwise, I'll probably not talk here today. We managed to do the 70-30 flip. As you can see, it was not an overnight change. But what we've seen with these through the time was not just about the numbers. It actually made the change in our culture. And it helped us to go from reactive to being proactive. And another thing I actually want to mention, in the beginning, as I said, everyone thought they knew exactly what the problem was and how to fix it. And in situations like this, usually fingers are pointed at people. Now, what I want to tell you is, when I started this journey, I had a group of people who added more, but the group of people that I started with, there was almost no change by the end, which showed that giving people a clear goal, putting a plan for them to follow, and putting something that they can get behind, you can make huge transformations. And the team that was seen as too slow, not creating value, at the end, when we achieved this, they were seen as the highest performance department in the organization, and they were being presented as the team that you should follow. And I'm happy to say that after we achieved that, we actually maintained to keep the 70% time for creating value. And was this Tuesday, I was presenting a new plan to the team where we're looking at creating even more time specific for innovation and career growth for people. So, one thing I want you to remember, engineering for impact is about more than just code. It's about leadership, communication, and a relentless focus on delivering value. And with a bit of focus and a clear plan, you can all do it. Thank you.